Week 12 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I looked at off the wire this week. The first hitter, Andrew Vaughn of the Chicago White Sox. So Andrew Vaughn, he's been on a heater of late, especially showing the power the last couple weeks here. But I know he's a low batting average, high strikeout type of hitter, and a prototypical power hitter. And that's what you're going to get on the season. 9 home runs, 28 RBIs, 25 runs scored, a stolen base at 227 average, and a 283 on base. But over the last couple weeks, 5 home runs, 9 RBIs, 11 runs scored, a 340 average, and a 365 on base. Vaughn, last season he hit 21 homers, 80 RBIs, a 258 average. But this season he got off to a horrible start the first 2 months of the year. We're now starting to break out and get things going, and he's out there, Vaughn, in 66% of fantasy leagues. So the last few games from June 12th at Seattle, 0 for 3. June 13th at Seattle, 2 for 5, a homer, 2 RBIs. June 14th at the D-backs, 0 for 4. And June 15th at the D-backs, 2 for 5, a homer, 3 RBIs. So right now, well, he's tearing the cover off the ball and showing good power. And ever since Luis Robert returned from injury, this White Sox offense is starting to hit some home runs and put runs on the board. So right now, well, Vaughn's on a heater, one of the hottest hitters in baseball over the last few weeks. He's definitely a great ad this week. And if he fizzles out in the next few weeks, you drop him back to the waiver wire. And that's just how the waiver wire works. You pick up a player, see if he's hot for a little bit. And if not, then you drop him back off. The next hit is his teammate Paul DeJong of the Chicago White Sox. So DeJong out there in tons of fantasy leagues at 79%. And you want to talk about power, already 14 home runs, 29 RBIs, 29 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 241 average, and a 291 on base. So DeJong, we know he's got pop throughout his career. We've seen him hit 20-plus home runs in seasons. And last year already matching the total this year in home runs, 14. And over the last couple weeks, he's on fire as well. 6 home runs, 11 RBIs, 9 runs scored, a 286 average, and a 333 on base for Paul DeJong. So DeJong, shortstop, we know is one of the weakest positions in fantasy baseball. And he's going to be a low batting average, high strikeout player as well. But if you could get a shortstop who could hit 25, 30 home runs, which DeJong is right now, you take that risk of obviously sacrificing batting average and on base and getting someone like DeJong. June 11th at the Mariners, 2 for 4, a homer, an RBI, 2 runs scored. June 12th at the Mariners, 0 for 3. June 13th at the Mariners, 0 for 4. June 14th at the D-backs, 2 for 4. And June 15th at the D-backs, 2 for 5, a homer, and RBI. So like I said, ever since Robert's been back in the lineup, this offense has picked it up, and they're showing mighty power. So DeJong, he's someone they possibly could trade at the MLB trade deadline. And that's what it's about for the White Sox, having a fire sale and definitely rebuilding with a lot of prospects. So right now, while the veterans are hitting well, he's the guy that I definitely could see this White Sox team trade at the deadline. But right now, while he's hitting great and a hitter who can help fantasy owners in a big way, he's definitely a nice ad this week. And like I said, available in 79% of fantasy leagues. Next hitter is Andy Pages of the Los Angeles Dodgers. So Pages, he's one of their top prospects in the system, and he's playing good baseball of late. Available in tons of leagues right now at 74% on the year. 7 home runs, 20 RBIs, 32 runs scored, a stolen base at 271 average, and a 319 on base for Pages. With the last couple weeks, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs, 8 runs scored, 325 average, and a 438 on base. So when you play in the lineup with great hitters like Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, there's not going to be a lot of pressure to go out there and perform. And Pages batting 5th to 6th usually in the Dodger lineup. He's got no pressure, and he's starting to get comfortable and get things going. June 12th versus Texas, 1 for 3. June 13th versus Texas, 2 for 4, a homer, and RBI. June 14th versus the Royals, 1 for 3, a run. And June 15th versus the Royals, 1 for 4 with a run. So he's playing every day. He's playing great baseball, and they got a road trip coming up at the Rockies starting tomorrow as well, where we know that ball flies out, and that Rocky pitching staff isn't good at all, and they're one of the worst teams in the league. So right now, Pages has turned things around over the last couple weeks and helped fantasy owners in a few categories: power, batting average, stolen bases, runs scored. He's definitely a good pickup this week. Next hit is Ryan O'Hearn of the Baltimore Orioles. So Ryan O'Hearn, we've seen this a lot throughout his career, where he's a hitter that goes on a tear for a little bit, then fizzles out. And a lot of these guys, this is what happens, especially with DeJong and Vaughn, who I mentioned early in the video. So on the season for O'Hearn, it's been a solid year. 9 home runs, 24 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 25 runs scored, a 285 average, and 338 on base. But the last couple weeks, he's been on a tear. 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 5 runs scored, a 368 average, and a 385 on base, so available in 52% of fantasy leagues. Most likely the last chance for owners to go out there and get Ryan O'Hearn. But like I said, he's playing well, getting that chance every day now with this Baltimore Orioles team, even though at times we do see him sit out here and there is O'Hearn. But he's June 10th at Tampa, 3 for 4, 3 RBIs. June 12th versus the Braves, 0 for 3. June 13th versus the Braves, 1 for 4. June 14th versus Philly, 0 for 1. And June 15th versus Philly, 2 for 4. So he's getting multiple hit games here and there as O'Hearn. He's showing good pop. He's in a great lineup, obviously, with Baltimore, one of the best teams in the league. And right now, well, he qualifies at first in outfield, which is good versatility as well, which always can help fantasy owners where these guys can play multiple positions. I like O'Hearn as one of the better pickups this week. The next hitter, Novo Marte of the Cincinnati Reds. So Marte, I mentioned him on my prospect video as someone to stash and watch this week. Available right now, still in tons of fantasy leagues, is Marte. But he's going to be back in a week or two off the suspension. And that third base position is going to be him. So a top 30 prospect in Major League Baseball is Marte. 77% of leagues he's out there. And last year in a small sample size in 114 at-bats, 3 home runs, 15 RBIs, 15 runs scored, 6 stolen bases, a 316 average, and a 366 on base. So I don't know what we're going to get from Marte, honestly, after he was suspended for PEDs, and we'll see if it helped him or didn't help him. But right now, he's definitely an intriguing prospect. I know he got busted for the 80 games, but like I said, this Red team's going to give him an opportunity every day. And I believe he's still going to steal some bases. I don't think he's going to be much of a power guy, but batting average on base, stolen bases, and runs scored, I think Marte could bring to fantasy owners. And this Red team has a lot of confidence already coming out and saying he's most likely going to be the everyday third baseman. So Marte, since he's out there in tons of leagues and has good upside, even though he was suspended 80 games, definitely a hitter to add this week. The next hitter, Tyler Soderstrom of the Oakland Athletics. A Soderstrom, he's playing every day for this Oakland A team. Plays first base, but qualifies a catcher as well. Since he's got an opportunity, he's starting to show some power. Is Soderstrom on the year, 4 home runs, 11 RBIs, 7 runs scored, a 224 average, and a 337 on base. Only 76 at-bats on the season. He's already got the 4 home runs, and he's done his damage in the last 2 weeks. 3 home runs, 6 RBIs, 5 runs scored, a 281 average, and a 378 on base. So he's got a pretty decent eye at the plate. Is Soderstrom with a high on-base percentage to batting average, over 110 points, available in 83% of fantasy leagues. And like I said, the good thing about him, he plays first base, but he qualifies a catcher, so pretty much, again, an everyday player at the catcher position as well, which is key. June 10th at the Padres, 1 for 3, a homer, an RBI. June 11th at the Padres, 2 for 3, a homer, 2 RBIs. June 12th at the Padres, 1 for 4, run, and RBI. June 13th at the Twins, 1 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs. And June 14th at the Twins, 1 for 5. So he's showing the power. He's playing every day, which is obviously a plus. And he's got a doubleheader here today at the Twins, where I might play both of these games. And if you got a guy that could play, he's playing every day, like I said, but qualifies a catcher, that's a huge plus. The next hitter is his teammate, Shea Langeliers, the catcher of this Oakland Athletic team. So Langeliers, he's an all-or-nothing type of hitter where he's going to strike out a lot, but he's going to show power and have a low batting average. And right now, he's out there in 77% of fantasy leagues. A catcher, if you could just find someone with power, I would take a shot on Langeliers. Last year, 22 and 63 with a 205 average. In this season, 13 home runs, 35 RBIs, 23 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 204 average, and a 263 on base. He's just a power hitter, Shane Langer. He is at the catcher position, where we know catch is a weak position. So if you could get someone that hits 25, 30 home runs, but bats 200, I think it's a decent trade-off. He's on an Oakland team where obviously they're playing all the kids, and he's going to get an everyday opportunity. And right now, while he's out there in 77% of fantasy leagues and showing power, he's a hit at add. June 10th at the Padres, 1 for 3. June 11th at the Padres, 0 for 2. June 12th at the Padres, 2 for 5 in RBI. June 13th at the Twins, 1 for 3. And June 14th at the Twins, 1 for 5 with a grand slam in that one. So right now, like I said, he's got power. Is Langeliers batting 5th to 6th usually in this lineup for this Oakland Athletic team. And this A team, we know they're one of the worst teams in the league, and they're just going to play these young guys. And some of them, they're going to go out there and put up numbers. It's not going to obviously be winning ways for Oakland, but still, some of these players can help fantasy owners, and they're under the radar. The next hitter, Brian Buxton of the Minnesota Twins. So Buxton, he's like a Langeliers, an all-or-nothing hitter. He's going to show power, and have a low batting average. But actually this season, he's actually hitting 244 in 172 at-bats, 4 home runs, 22 RBIs, 23 runs scored, the 244 average, and a 299 on base. And over the last couple weeks, 1 home run, 7 RBIs, a stolen base, 5 runs scored, a 244 average, and a 311 on base. I know a few years ago, Buxton had that monster season, hitting over 35 home runs. Available right now is Buxton still in a decent amount of fantasy leagues at 65%. So if you need power, and a guy could steal bases here and there, even though injuries and inconsistencies have been the problem for Buxton over the last few seasons, I still would take a shot on him in 12-team leagues or deeper. June 11th versus the Rockies, 2 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs. June 12th versus the Rockies, 1 for 4, 2 runs, an RBI. June 13th versus the A's, 3 for 3, a run, 2 RBIs. And June 14th versus the A's, 1 for 4, an RBI. So like I said, Buxton starting to get things going. 4-game hitting streak, where in those 4 games, he's actually got 7 hits. So Buxton's starting to play better for this Twin team. Maybe he's finally healthy as Byron Buxton, even though I wouldn't 100% count on it. But right now, since he's going out there and he's playing good baseball for this Minnesota Twin team and hitting at a decent rate, way better than he has over the last couple seasons, I would take a shot on him. And even if you stash him on the bench to see what he would do, I don't think he's a bad ad at all this week. The next hitter, Joc Pederson of the Arizona Diamondbacks. So Joc Pederson, he's that hitter where he gets hot at times for a couple weeks, and then everyone goes to the waiver wire and picks him up. But so far this season, he's been all around good with a high batting average, even though I know he don't verse lefties mostly as Pederson. On the year, 9 home runs, 30 RBIs, 24 runs scored, 4 stolen bases, a 291 average, and a 387 on base. So he's always been a good on-base to batting average guy. I know in terms of batting average total, he's usually in that 220 to 230 range. But to hit 291 this season and 165 at-bats is impressive for Pederson. Right now, he's available in 83% of leagues. Over the last month of the season, he's been playing well. 4 home runs, 21 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 8 runs scored, a 284 average, and a 351 on base. He's definitely held it up over the last month of the season. Is Pederson. The power's starting to get going over the last week as well with 3 home runs. And over the last few games, June 9th at the Padres, 1 for 4, run, 2 RBIs. June 11th versus the Angels, 1 for 2. June 12th versus the Angels, 0 for 3. June 13th versus the Angels, 2 for 4, a homer, 5 RBIs, 2 runs scored. And June 14th versus the White Sox, 2 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs, a stolen base, 2 runs scored. So Pederson, he's getting in that power surge right now for this Arizona Diamondback team. And when he does, he hits them in bunches, and we've seen it throughout his career. I know he's been a journeyman where he's bounced around, especially in that NL West, where he's very familiar bouncing around as Pederson, where he's been on the Dodgers, Giants, Arizona Diamondbacks. So right now, while he's out there, still in tons of leagues at 83%, and the power's starting to get going. He's an ad this week. And the final hit I looked at off the wire is Charlie Blackmon of the Colorado Rockies. So Blackmon's starting to get things going a little bit over the last few weeks and showing some pop as well. So Blackmon, more of a points leagues ad. I mentioned that last week in my videos. Available still in tons of leagues at 87% on the year. 3 home runs, 26 RBIs, 32 runs scored, 5 stolen bases, a 266 average, and a 335 on base. But the last couple weeks here, 1 home run, 2 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 8 runs scored, 347 average, and a 396 on base. So right now, this Colorado Rocky team, they're going to have a long homestand. Well, obviously, Coors Field is a great hitter's park with the altitude and the ball carrying. And Blackmon, obviously, it's not his MVP type numbers he's going to put up, or even those batting title type numbers, but still someone who could be solid as a 4th or 5th outfielder, or in deep utility leagues as someone who could help more in points leagues. June 10th at Minnesota, 2 for 4. June 11th at the Twins, 1 for 4, a run. June 12th at the Twins, 1 for 5, a run. And June 14th, a big ball game versus the Pirates, 3 for 4, a homer, and RBI, 2 runs scored. So right now, while Blackmon's hitting at a great average over the last couple weeks, he's still got things going where he can help fantasy owners. He's definitely a hitter I looked at this week. So that's a few hitters I looked at off the wire in Week 12 of the fantasy baseball season.